My name's George and I play volleyball. It's been my dream since I first found out it was a thing that people had done to move from the UK abroad to Europe to play volleyball there. And in 2022, that dream came true. I signed a contract to play for Uppsala in Sweden and played there for 2 seasons. So my time there was now sadly over. The videos I made in this series up to this point, we've been looking at my time in Sweden in a lot of detail, going into matches and reviews and how I found things. This final video looking at Sweden will take a step back and look big picture at how it went. What I liked, what I didn't like, what I do differently, and so on. Starting off then, we'll look at the best things from playing volleyball in Sweden. So number one biggest thing is just that I improved loads. Loads of reasons why this is. Firstly, just that the level is a bit higher than it is in the Super League in the UK, which is the level I've been playing before. You've got the average level is higher, and then the highest level is definitely higher. So the very best players playing in Sweden some of them have played, some of them have played Champions Leagues. One of them I think I played against had played VNL, and that doesn't really happen so much in the UK. More generally though, volleyball is just a bigger sport in Sweden than it is in England. So naturally, just more people play it, the average level is going to be that bit higher. Secondly, I was getting to train more. So in the UK, really, unless you're part of a student program, you're not going to be training 4 or 5 days a week. Whereas in Sweden, I was getting to do that again. Then just having 2 more seasons under my belt of playing volleyball in a different culture with different people, again, at a slightly higher level. Then I picked up loads of new things that weren't just technical, but kind of felt more like real experience from getting to play more. I'll talk in way more detail about these things in future videos, or seeing what it looks like to lead your team and get fired up from Koichi despite speaking barely any English. Learning what it looks like to not give up from Dima, going mental at the ref when we were match point down, getting destroyed. How to manage the tempo and momentum of a game from Adrian's shithousery. How volleyball matches can start to feel more like chess matches, seeing how Michael would meticulously prep for games tactically. Or how to come back from the brink of defeat and deal with the existential pressure of your career maybe ending if you lose, when we had our playdown series against Södertälje. Obviously, I did also learn a lot of technical things as well from having new coaches and playing with different people. So there's lots of small tweaks that have been made to my serving and passing, hitting technique and so on. But then some slightly bigger tactical, technical changes that are emphasised way more in the play style in Sweden than in England. So that's things like power tipping and replaying the ball. That's starting to catch on way more in the UK, but that was really pushed hard in Uppsala. Getting used to playing that a little bit faster as well. We played a really nice tempo, especially my first season in Uppsala. Admittedly, that was with an English setter, so I can't really claim that's super unique to Sweden. And also things like a much bigger emphasis on calling for your sets and communicating with the setter. Moving on, another great thing about my time in Sweden with volleyball was that I got to coach again. Now, obviously, I could have done this in the UK. It just so happened that the last few seasons I had in England, I wasn't coaching, and then my second season in Sweden, I was. But I'm really glad I got the chance to do this. I used to coach a lot when I was a student, and then having had a break from it, I'd kind of forgotten how much I enjoyed it. I really fell in love with it again. I had an amazing group of players to work with, and a fantastic season with them. Something else that was quite cool was being in a country where volleyball is a little bit more popular than it is in England, and where people have that extra bit of familiarity with it was really nice. I'd talk to someone and say, oh, I play volleyball, and it wouldn't be like, oh, is that the one on the beach then? It must be cold in the winter. It's like, oh, like my uncle played volleyball like a lot. I know what it is. I've been to watch games. That was just quite enjoyable to be around. Similarly, the results for our matches would be on the local news on the radio. So I'd come into work on a Monday at the school and someone would be like, oh, like, congrats on the win of the weekend. I heard it on the news on the way to work. There was one other thing that was really interesting that happened to us, in that we had almost exactly the same squad between the first and second season I had there, but we had a new coach. So any big changes you saw in the culture of the team between the first and second season, you could then generally attribute to the coach. The best example is probably punctuality. So our first coach, Michael, was really hot on this. It was just unacceptable to be late in the team. He made that abundantly clear. And as a result, people were very rarely late. Right at the start of the second season though, with our new coach, Dima, he said, seemingly being really understanding and chill, oh guys, I know it happens sometimes, people are late. Try not to be late, but if it happens, it happens. And not surprisingly, as a result, punctuality that season was relatively dreadful. Obviously, it's a proper team, people aren't turning up halfway through training, but when you're meeting at 5 in the morning and it's -15 to drive 7 hours to Lund, you obviously don't appreciate someone rocking up 15 minutes late. Everything I've talked about so far that was good was obviously about volleyball, and much as volleyball is a massive, or the main part of my life in terms of how I spend my time, it is ultimately only part of my life. So some other nice things I've got to experience from volleyball taking me abroad would be things like this. So firstly, I just got to live in a different country for 2 years, and I think that's a really cool thing to get to do. When I told a friend of mine that I was going to be playing and doing this, he just said, to be honest, mate, it just sounds like a great excuse to fuck off traveling for a while. And I think that's spot on. And I actually came away from leaving the UK with a much greater appreciation of it. Same thing happened to me when I went to uni, and I appreciated Norwich, my hometown, so much more. Mainly though, it was just awesome to experience another country and appreciate all the things that are different about it. Like the snow, the saunas, the meatballs med brune sauce, the shoehorns, the never taking the last slice of pizza, all of it, all of Sweden. In terms of how it affected me personally, I definitely felt way more independent and like I grew a lot from doing this. I struggled a lot with anxiety at this time, and then being thrown into this different environment really helped me to get over that. It's a great excuse to try and learn a new language, and getting to speak with natives instead of an owl on your phone is really cool as well. And then the people. I made some incredible friends along the way and had some amazing experiences with them. And to get to do all of this with Meg really brought us even closer together, because it is quite an intimidating thing to go and live abroad. So getting to do that with someone else was a really nice experience. Finally, as much as volleyball was my main focus when I was there, I spent as much, if not more time at work. I don't really talk about that much on this channel because, as I say, I kind of view this job as a means to an end of getting me in the country to play volleyball, but I did spend loads of time there. So briefly, my job was working in an international school in Uppsala, and I was a teaching assistant who basically looked after one kid who had special educational needs, and I worked really closely with them to support them. And this was a really, really rewarding job. My colleagues were amazing. It was really sweet working with these kids and seeing them grow and trying to help them through school when they were struggling. And I did enjoy it a lot. It was a really nice way to spend a lot of my time. I didn't really dread going into work at all, apart from the fact that I just had to get up and I was tired from volleyball. Okay, so those were some of the best bits from getting to live, work, play volleyball in Sweden. Now looking at some of the things I would have done differently. Firstly, I definitely would have tried to get more stuck in socially, mainly with my teammates, but also colleagues at work from the start, because I was quite timid at first. I was a little bit thinking I'm an outsider. Partly this was not my fault because I came a month later than everyone else because I was stuck in limbo. If you want to know more about that, go and watch the previous videos about it, basically just from visa problems and the paperwork being super delayed. So by the time I came, the whole team was, from my perspective, settled, and I was the outsider. Obviously, I was also a bit of an outsider being a foreigner, but I was one of like 5 foreigners in the team, so that wasn't a huge deal. Anyway, I think this basically slowed my progress with really getting settled with the team and comfortable playing better volleyball. By the time I left in the second year, I felt unbelievably close with the players, and I definitely could have got there sooner and would have had a better time if I did. I think the same thing applies, as I said, at my job. I think I got a bit carried away with work's a means to an end of playing volleyball, and I could have just put 5% more effort in at work, and it would have like doubled the amount of appreciation and enjoyment I had of a bit more pride in my work and a bit more job satisfaction. I definitely would have coached in my first season as well, partly just because I love coaching and I really enjoyed it, but also helped me get to know the club and the players in it better and feel that it was a bit more of a community rather than just I play for the elite team and that's it. The last big thing I'd have tried to do differently is I'd have put way more effort into learning Swedish. I feel like I slightly wasted the opportunity of being surrounded by native speakers and in Sweden to learn a language. In my defense, you do have to really be motivated to do it, because there's zero necessity of learning Swedish when you live in Sweden as an English speaker, because English language levels there are a joke. I've kept studying Swedish since leaving, and I've really enjoyed doing so, but now I'm kicking myself I didn't make more of the opportunity when I was there. Towards the end of the second year there, I learned what I think is the hardest skill of learning a language, which isn't grammar or pronunciation, it's balls. It's having the nuts to go and speak to someone in their language and just sending it. Like, it's actually very scary to go and do that, or at least it was for me. And I eventually got over that fear and started having some long samt conversations with people, but it was really enjoyable. Okay, so we've looked at the good bits, we've looked at what I'd do differently, and now we'll look at the not good bits. As I've said several times in this channel, transparency is super important to me, and I want to share the bits that aren't so rosy. The biggest thing, honestly, is that I was just fucking knackered. I've said before, my work-life balance was pretty messed up. I basically didn't have much of any downtime. I spent more or less all my time cycling, at work, at the gym, cooking, playing volleyball, sleeping, and that was it. And it was very overwhelming, and I'm not surprised at all that I got burnt out. It's definitely not sustainable for me to live that life. And I don't think it's that surprising that it was during these 2 years I started getting injured for the first time. The second thing is that a lot of the time it was quite lonely. I lived with Meg, but half the time Meg wasn't allowed in the country because we weren't able to get her a residence permit, and post-Brexit you need one. All the time that I was Megless and back in the flat, it was quite lonely. I never lived on my own before, and it was a cool experience to do it, but I didn't really like it that much. I would have much rather had some company. The third thing is that it does get a bit dark. I really didn't mind the cold or the snow that much. I quite enjoyed it, to be honest. But the winters in Sweden, especially as far north as Uppsala, do get very dark. You're only getting a handful of hours of sunlight during the day, and the sun stays so low in the sky that you're almost never in direct sunlight because it's hidden behind a 6-foot tall tree. During the winter, I always thought, nah, it's not that bad. And then spring would roll around and the sun would finally come out properly, and be a bit warm in late February, early March, and I would not be really happy. And then you'd look back and think, hang on a minute. It is not okay that a bit of sunlight makes me feel this euphoric and ecstatic. And I'm kind of thinking now, it is a bit fucked, and I genuinely don't know how people that live in Sweden all the time do it. This last one's a bit of a complicated one, as it's also kind of a good thing, as it taught me a lot. But the time playing in Sweden did make me enjoy volleyball less than I did before. There was way more pressure on volleyball to provide happiness and fulfillment in life, because it was very obviously the reason I was earning F4 money, living away from Meg half the time, living away from all my friends and family. Volleyball was the whole thing, which means if volleyball's not going well because I'm injured or benched or my head's in the toilet because I've gotten really anxious and I'm not even looking forward to playing, it begs the question, well, why are you here? And then it puts loads of pressure on volleyball to be good, and then volleyball isn't good, you're a bit miserable. After this last season I've just had playing volleyball in England again, I've really fallen in love with the sport. What I really want now is to be able to go back to Sweden and have this time again, but with the headspace I currently have, that to be honest, I didn't have for the years leading up to it as well. I'd really gone in quite a bad way post-COVID with my headspace with respect to volleyball. Again, if you want to know more about that, check out my previous video. But either way, much as this was difficult at times, it really taught me a lot about my own headspace and appreciating sport. The final thing I want to talk about is just to say that I'm extremely lucky to have been able to do this. It only happened because I happened to be going to the right school and be at the right age group to be picked to join a program when it started. I also couldn't have done this without the help of Meg and my parents. I mean, realistically, maybe I would have still done this and had a great time if I was a single Pringle, but I definitely would have found the whole thing way more intimidating and been less likely to go and do it if it wasn't for being with Meg. Though with my parents, in the spirit of transparency, our time living in Sweden was not very profitable. I think we just about managed to break even, but we were living very, very close to that line a lot of the time. And if it wasn't for the safety net of the bank of mum and dad to catch us if things did go tits up, I'm not sure we would have been able to take the risk of doing this, and then it wouldn't have been an option for us. So again, I just wanted to flag that I'm extremely lucky to have been in the position to do this. Anyway, there you have it. Sweden. Completed it, mate. What's next? Well, if you want to know what's next, you have to watch the next video. If you want to know what I'm up to right now, which is skipping ahead like a year, then check out my Instagram. If you want to support this channel even more, you can always go and help me out on Patreon. And in the next video, we'll be looking at what I did in the summer, moving on to the next season. Spoiler alert, it's more volleyball. Oh, fuck. This isn't recorded. I'll kill myself.